It has not changed. They're talking about climate change. Well, where? There's about 1 billion different places you can measure it. Measuring it's another problem. I don't have time. And then the temperature propagates north and south, all the way to the Antarctic and North Pole and the Antarctica. By the way, the North Pole might be losing ice, Antarctica's building ice. It just does that like for the last billion years, on, off. And if ice falls into the ocean, just picture an Italian ice cream cone and you try to put on 5 more scoops. Some of it's gonna fall off. Okay. So what causes this warming? Well, I love this group because I'm in here for the first time, and there's talk of natural rights and God-given rights. I love it. Okay, here's what happens. There's something called the greenhouse blanket. Now that is God-given, like gravity, like the weak and strong nuclear forces and the tilt of the earth. And if any one of these variables is off by so much as a trillionth of a trillionth of a billionth, it changes, we all die. Life on Earth ends. So we have the greenhouse blanket given to us by God. And it is basically 5 compounds, chemical compounds. Okay, not you, I know you know what you're talking about. What is the main compound in
Water
the...
vapor.
Huh?
Water vapor.
Oh, we got a smart guy in the front row. You're a front row guy, right?
It's like me.
How much about percentage would you guess?
80%.
Yeah, it's 95%.
95% what?
95% of the thing that makes us warm is water vapor.
Oh, okay.
Okay? 95%. And game over. Okay, I got 20 game over facts. I don't have time for all of them. Now, what's the remaining 5%? Okay, here's where the dirt's in the details. I'm going to say that a few times. 3.5% is CO2. But here's the question. How much of that is us, mankind?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We don't care, it's CO2. So what? We can't change that. By the way, it's basically the wind blowing stuff and sticks and twigs into the ocean. Most of it comes from the ocean, upwelling. And in Peru, there's the largest concentration of fish caused by these upwellings in ocean currents. We don't have time. But of that portion of mankind that's CO2 is 3.5% of a 3.5%. Do the math, that's about 1/1000th. Game over. We don't cause it. We don't cause the earth to warm and cool. We might cause a little bit. And here's what Democrats do. Every single subject. Name about 20 subjects that the Democrats screw up. Oh, never mind, we don't have time. But one of which is this subject of global warming. CO2 causes the earth to warm by a small fraction, okay? So, and then of that, like we just said, mankind's a small portion of that. And let me just reiterate, let me see, I wanted to say one thing about that. What was I gonna say? Well, let me just move on to the fact that they're trying to restrict that simply because it's the one thing they can restrict. Now, by the way, CO2 is a worldwide global phenomenon. And in other words, CO2 travels all the way around the planet as opposed to pollution. Pollution is a local thing. The Michigan and Ohio acid rain before the coal filters used to deposit in New England and causing acid rain, and it would cause the lakes to acidify. And so that was bad. And for a small amount of money, we put electrostatic scrubbers, and we can filter the And if you burn coal, by the way, at high temperature, it's called clean coal. You've just cleaned it up by about 40%. Boom. Coal's now beats all the EPA estimates. It's a good choice that Africa needs. Mm-hmm. Africa probably uses 90% of its energy as cutting down trees. Now, we're going to talk about today another critical point. We Republicans are the true environmentalists. If we don't have a strong economy, free markets, right? And if we don't do the proper things in energy, we're going to have an utter disaster like what's going on in California, canceling gas stoves, for God's sakes. And gas, compare gas with batteries. Gas has, you take a cubic foot of a fossil fuel and a cubic foot of batteries, it's between 20 and 90 times more energy density in the fossil fuels. Okay? They're very, very bad choices they're giving us, and they're lying to us about all that stuff. Now, so what we need to say is this: when it warms, when the earth warms and cools, because of the facts I've just given you, we're 1/1000th and so on, it does not matter if the earth is warming and cooling because we don't do it. Okay, if we do it the most, maybe 10%, and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Nobody knows what it is. It's the most complicated problem on earth next to the human big brain analysis I was told by a physicist, and they just don't know. There's ocean currents, there's the things I talked about, the radiation at nighttime. To finish, let me just add to that problem why. The earth cooling up, the sun hitting the equator, but it's at nighttime where it radiates out. Well, without God-given insulative blanket called the greenhouse blanket, it would all disappear. So the greenhouse blanket keeps us 90 degrees warmer than it would otherwise be. Otherwise, all plant life dies, animals and humans die. So the greenhouse blanket, due to 90 degrees, is very necessary, and all things CO2 are good. So what's our energy choices? Let's get right to that so we can move on with the afternoon's talks. And to understand where energy is, there's a whole picture. We Republicans think, as opposed to the other guys. And there's a whole big circle of energy. And there's 4 sectors. Let me get to that nice little picture. The total energy flow, they like to put it into 4 sectors. So you would have, where we are now is commercial, these buildings and airports, or you got residential, your homes, or you got industrial, and the industrial heat, like making steels and all those energy, making cement is very energy intensive, needs fossil fuels. You don't make a nice fire with electricity, folks. And then you got transportation. Transportation's only 20% of the energy pie. Just forget about it. Let's concentrate on the other 80%. What are fossil fuels? Does anybody know the approximate percentage of all the energy is fossil fuels? I'm going to pick on you, Greg. What would you guess the percentage of all energy?
As opposed to solar, wind, and nuclear.
All energy. How much of that is fossil fuels? It's 83%.
Pretty close.
It used to be 86, 87 until 50 years of attacks by the left. So now it's 83. You can't get away from it, folks. We need it. We desperately need it. And by the way, I brought this, and this is critical. Is it hot or cold in the planet right now?
Depends on where you are.
Huh?
We're in
You mean in the
Winterstone.
core?
But-
You mean in the planet?
but-
The,
but-
the planet temperature right now, is it hot or cold? So in other words, is it a big deal?
Depends.
Depends on where you are.
Here's the last 10,000 years, okay? In the last 10,000 years, it's 90% way hotter than it is today.
Yeah.
Game over. How many game over points do I have time for?
Oh, explanation.
Well, we're moving along.
As long as the game lasts.
Okay, and it's gotten hotter, as you can see towards the end here on the right. This is 10,000 years. By the way, Google this. I'm going to ask everybody one thing to do for yourself. Google Greenland ice core 10,000 year temperature history and have this on your phone. You just need one picture. You're going to show your rhetorical Democrat brother-in-law. Oh boy, I got a few of those. Here, look, see, here's 10,000 years. We're not hot. What's the big whoop? And then you get all these other things that take time to talk about. But this is it right here. This is the number one. I find this very effective as to the reason why it's not a big deal what's going on in the world. Now, energy, I'm sorry, we got to get right into that. Those were the four sectors. Transportation's only 20%. Why are we killing ourselves? California stopping my choice, which is a gas-powered car. I can't do my monthly trips to Arizona in a battery car. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Number one fuel choice for all power plants should be nuclear. Hands down, there is nothing close. We want to also, here's our talking point, another one. 3 words: clean, safe, and affordable.
Yeah.
Clean, safe, and affordable.
Yes.
China and India ain't gonna change until it's affordable. That's a critical point. We want clean. I like clean air and clean water. You know, why have the Republicans lost that discussion? We are so bad at winning debating people and losing the whole knowledge industry.
Cowards.
Yeah,
Cowardice.
exactly. I mean, that's, you name it, 100 different subjects, but we're not there. We got to get better at this. I mean, I'll try to get that glossy produced and we can have energy covered. Now, we want nuclear. It's a very nuclear energy. We won't get too into depth with that. But right now, we have the Admiral Rickover post World War II. You know, he had to fit a power plant into a submarine. It was brilliant. And the submarine could stay underwater for a year. The Ruskies got really nervous about that. You know, holy cow. And then, of course, they had to develop it. And of course, the Soviet Union develops things like Chernobyl.
Yeah.
You know, there's socialism for you. I don't know, I'd use that as a talking point, right? You like socialism? How about Chernobyl? You know, and that didn't even have a containment vessel. You know, every power plant in the world, by the country's laws, has a containment vessel. It's almost a foot thick stainless steel giant egg, which no longer is made in the United States. You can only get in Korea and Japan right now. And it was a carbon igniter. In other words, it didn't have simple shutdown mechanisms that we have and everybody else in the world has. So when it got through a test and it set off, you know, the thing, it destroyed the area around it. But all told, why nuclear is safe, including Chernobyl, which doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. 1,000 vessels, nuclear vessels, and not one has failed, except, and Chernobyl doesn't count. That was a failure of communism. So just look at the 1,000 real nuclear power plants, none of them has failed, including 3 Mile Island, which basically the leak from that was the equivalent of 1 X-ray.
Oh.
1 X-ray, that's what the damage was. And of course, Jane Fonda in the movie, what's the name of that movie?
China syndrome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, China syndrome. Thanks, John. And you know, in all that panic, there's some really good news. There's a fella. If you like, go to Google Torrance and thorium energy. Does anybody know what thorium is? Thorium as opposed to uranium? A couple people do. It's just another nuclear fuel, and it can't directly go to bomb material. Plutonium. Well, it can't go to plutonium, but it can be turned into a bomb eventually with a great deal of effort. However, the point is, it's almost unlimited. Thorium is everywhere. We would have an Earth supply of energy for everybody on the planet. There's a beach in Brazil that's, I don't know how much, but a lot of thorium. It's in the sand, it's everywhere. And we used, once again, the Admiral Rickover Navy design, and because the Navy paid for all the research anyways, they just turned that into making power plants, as opposed to using what we should have, thorium, with something like molten salt, Generation 4, which there's none of these power plants in the world. But if we went to Generation 4 power plants, you'd be able to remove about a dozen safety systems, remove the cost down to very, very cheap, and remove all the danger that is in a nuclear power plant. Once again, 1,000 of these things, and none of them have failed badly. You know, 3 Mile Island, and then Fukushima, which was down the street from the ocean in the country that invented the term tsunami. You know, by the way, Fukushima engineers kicked out the American review team that failed the power plant. They kicked them out.
3 more minutes.
Okay, good. So, nuclear, good news. Generation 4, we'd love to see that happen. What else do we have? Fossil fuels, 83% of all energy, and the term there is drill baby drill. We need more. Africa needs to stop burning its trees and needs to use coal. And corn alcohol, how bad that is. We gotta get our Republican senators to get honest on that too. In Nebraska and Iowa, we don't want corn, for crying out loud. Taking up all that farmland. By the way, 1 unit of energy in, what does that buy you? 1 unit of energy out. It's a stupid waste of time. Wind and solar. I have my major in engineering was wind energy. If you have a 16-mile-an-hour breeze, it drops to 14 miles an hour due to the speed of the wind. Cute. You have half the lights in the ceiling going out.
Wow.
16 miles an hour, how often does that drop to 14 miles an hour?
All the time.
Every minute?
All the time.
So you have a backup plant that's fossil fuels. Every time you have wind and solar, you have a backup plant. Why don't we just build the backup plant?
Natural gas?
No. Anyway, but that gets worse. The backup plant is a startup in an hour type of backup plant, as opposed to a good kind of combined cycle power plant, you know, natural gas, which takes 24 hours but is very, very efficient. Therefore, it uses more CO2 and pollution to have a wind plant than just natural gas. More pollution, more CO2. Game over. I mean, you know, I got 20 of these, and I can go all day. Solar comes from what? Where does solar come from?
The sun, sure.
The sun.
Excuse me, what is this solar panel made
panels.
from?
Okay.
Oh, silicon.
Silicon, what's that made from? Sir? Sand. Good, great. It's made from sand. What do you gotta do to melt sand? 4,000 degrees at 12 hours. How many years does it take to recoup that pollution? Game over. Okay, moving on.
Outrageous.
What we Republicans call wind and solar, and they seem to, I don't know why, love, they're unreliables. That's the word for wind and solar. Everybody needs to use that. Unreliables. They're parasites on the system. The backup plants are no good. Why do we build 2 power plants? I don't get it. Batteries, I explained the terrible energy density of batteries. God bless them. What Tesla's owner, Elon Musk. You know, he builds the biggest battery plant in the world and claims, solar and batteries will do it. Do you know that for 1 day storage, 1 day American storage, it takes 400 years to build that amount of capacity from that Nevada plant? Game over. All right. And so, there's 2 billion people in the world with energy less than our refrigerator. So what we Republicans, I'd like to propose, if they ask me, would be a near-term, mid-term, and long-term energy plan. And we got to stick to it, not every 4 years change everything and throw good things away. Near-term, drill everywhere. We need the fossil fuels. Produce the economy, get the economy going, and thereby getting able to give us cleanup and irrigation and filters and give us a better economy. We Republicans are the true environmentalists. And midterm would be nuclear, hopefully thorium, molten salt reactors, or at least France's nuclear power plant. By the way, France is 78% of the power plants is nuclear. The second place is far away, Sweden at 40%, we're 20%. And that's, by the way, if somebody says, oh, I want to get rid of CO2, oh, you want nuclear? No, then you don't want to get rid of CO2, period. And then in conclusion, good news, I told you the good news, there's a lot of good, clean, safe, affordable plans we can have. We need, quite honestly, comes down to politics and free, honest economies and adaptation. At 1 inch a year, if the oceans are rising, you could do this.
That's right.
Once every 100 years. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.